أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So Alhamdulillah, I'm really happy that we're back on Seerah now. We did a really long hadith last few weeks. So now Alhamdulillah, it's nice to go back to Seerah, and we're on a very interesting topic now. It's actually an aspect of Seerah which in my youth I think I really struggled to come to terms with, just because of the nature of that incident. But inshallah, there is so much benefit in it, and there is so much hikmah in what happened and how it happened. All right, so so far we covered, of course, we covered the whole Meccan period, and then we covered Battle of Badr. We covered some of the things that the Prophet ﷺ does when he migrates to Medina. So now we're in the Medina period. And so in the Medina period, we covered Badr, which took place in which year? Can anyone remind me? So I'm keeping my eyes out for the chat box as well. Which year after Hijrah did Badr take place in? And if you can remember the month then or the date, that's even better. Okay, so I'm going to keep talking until somebody replies, because sometimes I think it takes time for the messages to come through. Then we covered some incidents between Badr and Uhud. So there isn't much time that elapses between Badr and Uhud, but there are a few things that take place between Badr and Uhud, and they are important, and so we mentioned a lot of them. So some of those things were, we mentioned a few skirmishes, which are like, they were small, you could say, expeditions. Some of them were ghazawat, some of them were saraya, and we talked about the differences between saraya and ghazawat. We talked about an attack that Abu Sufyan launches on Medina, but it's a very small thing that he does with a very small number of people, and it's just out of anger, frustration over the defeat at Badr. And so you can see that they're still very angry, embarrassed, frustrated, and they are trying to they're trying to avenge Badr, but they haven't quite been able to do so yet. Then we talked about the assassination of Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf, which was a very, I think most of the halaqah was about that. And that was an important incident. So these are all things that you can go back to previous durus and catch up on them for revision if you need to. And these are some of the incidents that take place between Badr and Uhud. And like I said, that the time span between Badr and Uhud is about a year. So since no one has answered, Badr took place in the second year of Hijrah, and it takes place in Ramadan. So I think that's pretty easy to remember, inshallah, yeah? And Uhud takes place in the third year after Hijrah, and it takes place in Shawwal. So you can see it's nearly a year between the two. Now, there are some things that lead up to Uhud, and it is said that as soon as Abu Sufyan returns from Badr, and he is still, Abu Sufyan, as you know, he was leading the caravan back to Makkah, right? So he doesn't actually participate in Badr, but when Abu Sufyan returns to Makkah and he starts to find out about the defeat at Badr and about the losses and the deaths and all the incidents at Badr, and this news starts to come out in Makkah, it is said that it is almost immediately that he decides that, and he starts planning how to avenge Badr. So it happens so quickly and almost so instantly. However, you can see how long the planning takes. So he takes his time and he plans it as well as he can. He's not hasty, he doesn't rush into it. And so you can see that for almost a year, he just plans until they finally launch the attack. Now, the causes for Uhud to actually take place are a few. So one of them, as I've mentioned, is revenge. So the Quraysh, their dignity has been hurt, their position in society has been injured. They were known as an extremely powerful force, a force to reckon with. That's how they were known in Arabia, and that has all been damaged by Badr. So those are some of the social reasons for Uhud to take place. They have also lost relatives. They have lost leaders. They suffered a lot of loss at Badr. So all of these are like social reasons why they feel the need to go launch an offensive attack. Okay. There are some religious reasons as well. The religious reasons are that the Quraysh obviously see Islam as a threat, and they can't allow this threat to jeopardize their presence in Arabia. And so they need to stop the advancement of Islam. So there is clear animosity towards Islam, towards the Prophet ﷺ, and towards Tawheed. So what was originally, you could say, a standoff between the Quraysh and the Prophet ﷺ, right? When the Prophet ﷺ is in Mecca, they oppose him, they torture anyone who becomes Muslim. They try and curb Islam as much as they can while this is happening in Mecca. And it's, like I said, it's more or less like a standoff between the Quraysh and the Prophet ﷺ. However, when the Prophet ﷺ moves to Medina and now, things are changing, you can see the political scene is changing, then it becomes like a conflict between Tawheed and Kufr, right? It becomes almost like a conflict between belief and disbelief. So there is a lot of religious animosity, and they need to stop Islam, and so they're going to try anything that they can do. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين كفروا ينفقون أموالهم ليصدوا عن سبيل الله فسينفقونها ثم تكون عليهم حسرة ثم يغلبون والذين كفروا إلى جهنم يحشرون. Indeed, those who disbelieve spend their wealth to avert people from the way of Allah. Now, when Allah is saying this, that those who disbelieve, they spend their wealth to take people away from Islam or to take people away from the way of Allah, this is when the preparation is starting up in Mecca, right? Where they are starting to, they need arms or weapons, they need manpower, they need slaves, they need a lot of things to go to, war. And so this is how they are spending their wealth to take people away from the way of Allah. And then Allah says, so they will spend it. Then it will be for them a source of regret. So this wealth that they're putting in this effort to take people away from Islam, this will ultimately become a source of regret for them. Then they will be overcome, and those who have disbelieved unto hell, they will be gathered. So At-Tabari says in his tafsir of this ayah, they are spending their money to prevent people from becoming Muslim. And Ash-Shawkani says about this ayah, the objective of these kuffar in spending their money is to stand between the people in becoming Muslim by fighting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and mobilizing armies for that purpose. So by them getting in the way of people and Islam, or people becoming Muslim, whether that means fighting the Prophet ﷺ, mobilizing armies, they will do whatever it takes. And this is something that is not something that just happened at that time. We can see so many examples of that today, right? So even today, this is what the kuffar do. They try and spend their resources, their time, their effort, their money, their manpower, whatever they can, to take people away from Islam, to divert people from the path of Allah. And of course, I mean, today we see it in a different, it's packaged differently, but it's the same concept. So it might be media, it might be, again, bad publicity through media, fighting, armies, mobilizing armies, all sorts of, opposition towards Islam. And media is a big one today, because they have so many different avenues that they can use, which all come under media to take people away from Allah. And if you look at some of the the spending and the budget that some of the non-Muslim countries have, they are in financial deficit, if they have to be, as long as they can continue funding whatever it takes to take people away from Islam. And that is something that is happening today. So the kuffar today are not very different from the kuffar at that time. The next reason, so we've covered two reasons now. Social reason, which was, like I said, the embarrassment at Badr, the avenging the deaths of their leaders and their elders at Badr, and trying to restore their reputation. So that's the social. And we talked about the religious reasons why they want to take people away from Islam. That is one of the reasons that they are, considering going to Uhud, because they've tried to abolish Islam while it was in Makkah. They couldn't do it. Now it's gone to Medina and it's spreading, and this is becoming a threat to them. Economical reasons. What do you think are the economic repercussions that are hitting the Quraysh really hard? I want you to think and answer. Because this is something, it's actually something quite obvious, but okay. So while you think about the economic reasons, so their Hajj was being threatened by Tawheed. But now I'm asking you that what is that is the reason they want to abolish Islam, true. But what is the reason they are now going to try and fight the Prophet ﷺ in Medina? Okay, so the religion and idols again is back to, they want to abolish Islam altogether. But how do you think the Prophet ﷺ living in Medina is affecting their economy? Okay, so this is like a repeated theme, I would say, that we have discussed, over the past few lessons in Seerah. So what is happening? What caused Badr?
Sister Fatimisa, because our Prophet ﷺ had occupied the territories where the Quraysh used to go for trading. Mm-hmm. That was one of them.
Yes. So basically their trade routes, right, which is their economic lifeline, was being extremely threatened by the presence of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. Okay. So they had two main trade routes. They had one in Sham and one in Yemen. Right, so one was up, you could say north, and one is down south. And these trade routes are what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to in Surah Al-Quraysh, right? Where Allah says, لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشِ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالسَّيْفِ. So Allah is saying, for the accustomed security of the Quraysh, their accustomed security in the caravan of winter and summer. And this was something that you can see Allah is saying this is their accustomed security. Like, this is something they had taken as their right, that they had the right to safely take their trade caravan to Sham and to safely take their trade caravan to Yemen. And in the summer, they would go to Sham, and in the winter they would go to Yemen. So that's why they had the summer and the winter routes, right? And at the moment, you can see that the Prophet ﷺ is jeopardizing which route? The one to Sham or the one to Yemen? I just need to make sure everybody is with me. Which trade route is the Prophet ﷺ and his companions jeopardizing at the moment? So it is their caravan to Sham, okay? And although this is just one trade route that is getting cut off, right? So their trade route to Sham is getting disrupted by these by these raids, right, that the Muslims are carrying out. How is that affecting their entire economy? Because their trade route to Yemen is still open. Any ideas? Okay, so basically it was a buying and selling route, right? So they would buy from Sham and they would sell in Yemen. So once Sham gets cut off, Yemen automatically by default gets cut off. So you can see that the Prophet ﷺ strategically and extremely cleverly is squeezing the noose on their economy, right? He's squeezing them dry. So basically they can't buy and sell, they're stuck, and their economy is really struggling because of this. I hope that's clear and it's not confusing. So they were accustomed to be respected by the Arabs. They were accustomed to have safe routes in both of their trading routes. And now the safety has all become jeopardized because of the Prophet ﷺ and the believers. And what they are not thinking about is that the reason this is happening and the reason they are struggling or they are in a problem or they're facing difficulty is because of their rejection of Islam, because of their rejection of Tawheed, right? And who is the one who was providing them this rizq? Who was the one who was providing them this safety? It was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when they reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they suffer. And then the blessings that Allah has given them get taken away one by one. Safwan ibn Umayyah says, Muhammad and his companions have ruined our trade. While we do not know what measures to take against them, we are at loss. So they have tried different things. So far, they had a direct route to Sham. That didn't work because that's getting ambushed or raided. So then they tried some different routes. They went around this way, they went around that way, up north, around the east. And still, they still got battered, right? So nothing worked. So he's saying that while we're still trying to figure out how to work around these raids, we are at loss. And he says they are constantly threatening the coastal area while its inhabitants are at peace or in alliance with him. So now the other threat for them is that the Prophet ﷺ is managing to form new good allies and relations with, tribal areas around Medina and around the coast. So they're saying that this is another problem for us because he's got supporters and he's got allies as well. And then he says, so he says, where shall we live? And where shall we stay? If we stay here in our hometown, we will be forced to eat from our capital, which will soon be consumed because they're not earning anything. So if their trade routes are cut off and their income is cut off, that means they're going to have to eat up from their savings. And then what's going to happen? We depend for our lives from our trade with Syria in the summer and with Yemen and Abyssinia in the winter. So he's basically just, you could say, summarized and outlined a huge problem that they're facing at the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. And you can see, this has to do with strategy. It has to do with wisdom, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he does not have access to any fancy weapons or any fancy equipment or anything like that. He has, he's basically just using his strategy. He's using his his intelligence to fight them in a way that is really hurting them. And that's, just by raiding one area of their caravans. And so he's making things very difficult for the Quraysh. And they are feeling suffocated, in what is happening to them currently. And so you can see that the Prophet ﷺ, his strategy is not only inflicting physical harm on them, but it's also attacking their economic status, right? So they won at Badr, and now they're affecting their economy. So we've got social, religious, and economic reasons, and then the last one is political reasons. And the political reasons are quite clear, right? After Badr, the reputation and the position and the status of the Quraysh is shaken up. So they are not known as a force or as a strong nation as they were previously. And this defeat has seriously weakened their reputation, right, in the whole of Arabia. And they were seen as the most respected tribe, the Quraysh. That's why they were hardly fought against, because they were very powerful. But now Badr has come and it has changed the scene, and the Quraysh obviously want to regain their position, and so they have a political reason why they want to, plan Uhud, or why they want to launch an offensive attack on the Muslims in Medina. So what they do is, like we said, to start setting up or to start planning a battle or an offensive attack on anyone, you need resources. You need manpower, you need weapons, you need wealth. So at the moment, you can see they have little or no income because of their trade routes being cut off. So how are they going to now assemble an army with with not much wealth? So what they do is, Abu Sufyan, he assigns Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl, that's Abu Jahl's son, and Umayyah ibn Khalaf to go door to door to every house in Mecca and ask them to give up their earnings from the caravan at Badr. So you remember that Abu Sufyan was able to take the caravan back safely to Mecca, and so everything that was on that caravan was saved, right, in terms of wealth. And so they didn't lose that. And so that is what they had. And now they are going door to door and saying, whatever you earned and whatever was saved at the time of Badr, now you need to give that to us so that we can use this wealth to assemble another army. Okay. And he also approaches two tribes. These are the two tribes that he approaches seeking help. They have wealth, perhaps more than other tribes, and so he's asking them to help in any way that they can, whether it is through weapons or slaves or manpower or wealth, etc. And so these two tribes are called Kinana and Tihama. Okay, so they are the two tribes that are asked to help in equipping this army that they're trying to get together. Okay, so the Quraysh managed to assemble an army of 3,000 people, and even if the Kinana and Tihama have given some people to assist in this battle, they will probably be very few. The majority of the people who make up this army are Quraysh. And and this army is being financed from the caravan that was rescued at the time of Badr by Abu Sufyan, right? They assemble 3,000 men, 200 horses, and 700 coats of armor or coats of mail. And coats of mail was you could say it was a sign of wealth. It was an investment. It was something very valuable and precious. And as you may or may not know, but coat of mail is made with, iron rings which are sort of locked in, and it forms a whole, you could say, like a covering or actually like a coat. That's why it's called coat mail. Does anybody know when this was started? When, the making of this coat mail, to which Nabi this was given? The ability to do this. Sorry?
Dawud alayhi salam or Sulaiman alayhi salam?
Yes.
He was the one.
Yeah, Dawud alayhi salam, yes. So Dawud alayhi salam, this was, you could say, like a gift given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he was able to, the iron was made soft for him, and he was able to shape it into any shape that he wanted. And, he could make it into rings, he could do all these things with it. And, that's the first time that this was made, this coat mail or mail of armor. And so this was something that would be a lifelong thing once you had it. It was, like I said, it was valuable. It had a lot of value. It was not something that the Quraysh could make, by themselves. And so this was something that they would get made, and so that's why it had even more value, because it was not something locally easily available. And when they would be in any kind of combat, this was one of the most precious things they would look forward to, is that if I defeat my enemy, I get to keep his coat mail or his, mail of armor. So this was something, and they managed to have 700 armors, which means they have 700 men out of their 3,000 who are actually wearing protective gear, right? So it just makes, you could say it sort of makes the fighter last longer. So that's a good thing. While this preparation is going on in Mecca, how does the Prophet ﷺ in Medina find out what's going on? Anyone know? The Prophet ﷺ's uncle, Al-Abbas, it seems that he becomes Muslim after Badr, but he doesn't divulge his Islam to anyone. So he's still living in Mecca, and he is Muslim, but nobody knows that. And so, yes, very good. And so he gathers information, and he sends one of his servants to the Prophet ﷺ to tell him exactly how many people and horses and what their resources are and what they're planning to do, and, to give him a heads up and to inform him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he is not hasty, and he doesn't just go by, the information sent to him by one person. What he does is, first of all, Abbas, he has to be strategic in how he gets this information across. Now, again, this has to all be done physically, right? Because there is no other way of getting, information from one place to another. So he has to wait until this army sets out, because otherwise they're going to get suspicious. And so on the 7th of Shawwal, in the 3rd year of Hijrah, the Quraysh march out of Mecca, and they start going towards Medina. So they're ready now, they're prepared, everything is in place, and now they're going to go and launch this attack. As soon as they leave, Abbas sends his servant to the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the distance between Mecca and Medina, if you were to go, at a comfortable pace, does anybody know how long it would take approximately? Of course, we're talking about going on foot. And it's a distance of about 400 to 500 kilometers, or maybe even less. Okay, so normally it would take about 2 weeks. If you went a little faster, maybe 10 days. But the Quraysh covered this distance in 1 week, in 7 days. And Abbas's servant, he covers this distance in 3 days, and that is the absolute minimum. You could not do that quicker than that. So it takes him 3 days, but he manages to get to the Prophet ﷺ and give him this information. Now, when he reaches and he gives the Prophet ﷺ this information, if you do the maths, right, that it takes the Quraysh 7 days, and this servant has got there in 3 days. They are about 2 days, you could say, away from Medina at that time. When the Prophet ﷺ finds out that there is an army prepared of 3,000 with so many horses, with so many, armor, etc., etc., and, he's just getting this information, and they're like 2 days away now. So you can see, you can imagine the pressure, you can imagine the time constraint in which he needs to make a decision. He needs to be decisive. He needs to be, there's a number of things that he needs to be really quick on now. So there are some questions about why Abbas sends his servant so late to the Prophet ﷺ to give him this information. Now obviously this is speculation, but there are some possibilities why this is done so late. One is that maybe the Quraysh don't trust him because they know that he is the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, and they might be suspicious about what is going on between him and the Prophet ﷺ. And the second reason could be that he genuinely could not do anything until the city was empty, because he would be jeopardizing everyone's safety if he had done that. And so he didn't want them to find out that he's sending this information. So he had to just sit on it and wait until they leave. And then, his servant had to go really fast so that he gets there before them. Okay, so this servant, he gets to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ is visiting Quba at that time, and he gets to him and he gives him the letter. And the Prophet ﷺ, of course, cannot read. And so he hands the letter to Ubay. Ubay, he reads out this letter to the Prophet ﷺ. Ubay ibn Ka'b, he reads out this letter to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ now finds out that there's an army which is probably about 2 or 3 days distance away from Medina. And so the Prophet ﷺ tells Ubay that please keep this information a secret. So now Ubay knows that there's an army, and the Prophet ﷺ knows, and the Prophet ﷺ tells him that just keep it quiet, don't tell anyone. Of course, there might be a number of reasons for this. You don't want to alarm the people of Medina. You don't want this just to become like a hype the situation up. So he needs time to now think and decide what he wants to do next. So the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ does is he tries to keep this news quiet. The second thing he does is that he needs to be absolutely sure that this information is correct, and that there is nothing false or no inaccuracy in this information, because the repercussions of acting on this information are huge, right? He's just finding out that Medina is about to be attacked by an army of about 3,000 people. So he's going to take appropriate action against that. And he can't afford to be wrong in having received this information, or for there to be any inaccuracies in this information. And so he's received this information, but now he wants to confirm its accuracy. So he sends out 2 sets of people for further reconnaissance. He sends out somebody called Mundhir to go and blend in with the army and get some information. And he sends out Anas and Mu'nis also to go and gather information from the Quraysh. And both these sources come back to the Prophet ﷺ, and they give him exactly the same information. So now he is absolutely sure that there is no inaccuracy, and that this is exactly what is happening, that there is an army which is at a distance of about 2 days, and they're about to come and attack Medina. And so now that the Prophet ﷺ is sure that this is what's happening, now he goes to the chiefs of Medina because he needs to discuss this. This is a big thing that is about to happen. And so he goes to the chief of the Ansar, who is Sa'd ibn Rabi'a. And he visits Sa'd at his house, and he sits down with him, and he tells him that the Quraysh are coming to attack Medina. And he explains, he gives Sa'd the details that he has, and he asks for his opinion. Because remember, they have a contract with the Prophet ﷺ, right? That if the Prophet ﷺ is attacked or anything like that happens, they have promised to defend him and to ensure his safety. When the Prophet ﷺ finishes his conversation with Sa'd, he again asks Sa'd to keep this conversation a secret and not to divulge this to anyone. However, after the Prophet ﷺ leaves, the wife of Sa'd ibn Rabi'a, she comes up to him and she says, "What did Rasulullah ﷺ tell you?" Now, this is sensational news. This is big information, right? So she's probably alarmed and she's trying to confirm that, have I just heard what I have just heard? And so he tells her that it is none of her business and that he does not wish to discuss his conversation with the Prophet ﷺ with her. And so she tells him that she heard everything. And so he says, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." And then he goes to the Prophet ﷺ and he tells him that his wife knows. And he says that, "I am just telling you, in case this information gets out, I don't want you to think that I am the one who leaked it." And so the Prophet ﷺ, he just says, "Leave her alone." As in, just let it be, that she's heard it. One of the things that you can glean from this, just this small incident, and like I said, every time that you study Seerah from beginning to end, you just learn more and more lessons and, more things to reflect on and to learn from. But one of the things you learn from this is that when something is private or when something is a secret, it doesn't matter how much you trust someone, it doesn't matter how much you love someone, it doesn't matter how close you are to someone. But when something is supposed to be kept quiet and it is an amana, then it should be treated as an amana. It doesn't matter. The person that you are going to give that information to does not determine whether you should divulge this or not. What determines that is the fact that it is a secret, or if somebody's asked you to keep it quiet, then you just keep it quiet and keep it to yourself. And especially in this kind of situation where it affects the safety of the Muslims, the safety of this new Muslim community, then it's even more serious and even more important not to divulge this information to anyone. Also, I think sometimes it can be tempting for a person to think that, such and such important person came and trusted me and they told me something that nobody else is supposed to know. Because that is also partially divulging that there is something that is hidden. So no such hints, nothing. When something is a secret, you just, zip your mouth up and you don't let any information out. So contrary to popular belief, husbands do not have to tell everything to their wife and vice versa, right? Now, so what the Prophet ﷺ does now is he's doing everything step by step, right? So he's received the information, he's spoken to the leader of the Ansar, and now he's going to go and he is going to do what we call shura. And so he holds a meeting with the Sahaba now, because this is something that is going to affect everyone, and it is something that involves everyone. So it has to be eventually, they have to find out what's going on. And you can see the time constraint that he's working under, right? This army is like just a couple of days away now. And so he convenes a meeting with the Sahaba and he asks them, this is what's happening. The Quraysh have this army and they're coming to Medina to attack us. What should we do? So he comes out with two opinions. One of the opinions which he supports, the Prophet ﷺ himself supports this opinion, and that is to fight within Medina and use it as a fortress. Now, this is something really interesting and something that maybe you should observe the next time you are in Medina. But Medina is just geographically really cleverly situated, and it is protected more or less on all sides. So you have the two plains of volcanic rock, and you have the mountain range of Uhud. So although we call it the mountain of Uhud, it's actually a bunch of mountains, and it's a long range of mountains, almost spanning about a mile. And then you have Uhud is to the north of Medina, right? And then you have these two volcanic plains on both sides. And then towards the Quba end, you have date plantations. So you have these date palms. So you can see that it's more or less fortified and closed off from all sides. And so his suggestion is that we use Medina as a fortress and we stay here. And so the women and children will also be able to participate. Of course, not necessarily going on the ground, but, from their roofs, from their windows, they can attack, right? They can throw things. They can be used as manpower. And this was the opinion of the Prophet ﷺ, and it was also the opinion of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn as-Salul. Now, the Prophet ﷺ's opinion is the way it is because of strategy, but Abdullah ibn Ubay, he is going with this opinion because he was too afraid to go outside Medina and fight. And as you know, what do we know about Abdullah ibn Ubay? Anyone? He was the head of the Munafiqun. No, he did not run away. Yes, he was the leader of the hypocrites, right? And so he did not want to lose his life, and he did not want to jeopardize his safety and come out of Medina. So he said, this is a very good idea. We stay in Medina and we fight them. And he also said to the Prophet ﷺ that because he, he's obviously from Medina, and he knew the, you could say, the fortress capacity of Medina. And so he tells the Prophet ﷺ that we have never lost, a fight or a battle or a conflict as long as we were inside Medina. And again, like I said, this is going back to, the way Medina is closed off, right? So that was one opinion. The other opinion, which seemed like the majority opinion, and which was predominantly the opinion of the younger Sahaba, was that we go out and we meet the enemy in the open. We don't stay within Medina, but we go out. And they had a number of reasons for saying that. One of their primary reasons, or the people who were making this suggestion, were primarily those who had missed Badr. Okay, so they were young, and young people are anyway, very zealous and, very enthusiastic. And then on top of that, they had missed Badr, so they just felt that they had to feel what they had missed out on, and they wanted to go out and fight, and their opinion was sincere, because they are some of the people who are actually martyred in Uhud, and these are the people who are suggesting that they should go out. But you can see that they really wanted to do this. They really wanted to lay their lives for the sake of Allah, and they're not just saying this because they're not just harping about this, but they actually put their money where their mouth is. they also felt that it was more dignified to go out of the city and fight with the enemy rather than, it almost felt like cowardice to them to stay within the city. And they felt that it would be shameful to allow the kuffar to enter their homes in Medina. So this was the other opinion, right? So you have this group of Sahaba who are really eager to go out, and then you have the Prophet ﷺ and some of the Sahaba who, agreed that they should stay inside Medina. Yes, what I was trying to remember what I was going to say, because it completely gone out of my head. But I was going to say that at that time, Medina was nothing like we see it today. Like, for example, today, the city of Medina extends to a much greater area than it did at that time. So at that time, you could say that the entire city or the population of Medina was limited to what, you could say the boundaries of the current Masjid al-Nabawi today, right? That was Medina. And so you can see Uhud, which today is part of the city, and it's about a 10-minute drive from Masjid al-Nabawi, right? If for those of you who have been, who have visited Uhud while you're in Medina, Uhud was considered to be on the outskirts. It was considered to be outside the city, right? Which is why the Prophet ﷺ goes up to Uhud. So you can see that geographically it was different at that time. And Quba was its own area, Uhud was outside the city, and Medina, like I said, was a very small restricted area. In fact, even Baqi, which is the graveyard, it was meant to be outside the boundaries of the city, and now today you can see it's all like one area. So when the Prophet ﷺ had heard these opinions, and of course, a very energetic opinion coming from the younger Sahaba, he gets up and he goes into his house to put on his armor. And as he does that, the Sahaba, the older Sahaba, who had kept quiet all this time, they haven't spoken, and you can see it's out of respect for the Prophet ﷺ. They had extreme respect and adab towards the Prophet ﷺ. So they did not feel it's their place to interject or to speak out or even correct the younger Sahaba in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. So they wait until he gets up and he walks out, until he leaves. And then they sort of reprimand the younger Sahaba, and they say that did you not hear the opinion of the Prophet ﷺ? He wants to stay within the city. So why are you putting pressure on him to go out? And so then they felt guilty as well, and they felt bad, and they felt as if they had overridden the decision or the opinion of the Prophet ﷺ, and they felt very guilty about it. And so they send Hamza radiallahu anhu to go into the quarters of the Prophet ﷺ and to tell him that we will go with your opinion and we will fight from within the city. Okay, so when Hamza radiallahu anhu goes in, by that time the Prophet ﷺ has already put on his armor, and he is fastening the armor to himself, And so when Hamza radiallahu anhu, he said to him, because they said, go and talk to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We think that we have pressured him and we are willing to go with what he thinks is the better idea. So now the Sahaba have said, this is not good, that we've almost forced him into this. So let's go and tell him that we're okay to do whatever he has decided. And so when the Prophet ﷺ has put on his armor and Hamza comes in and he radiallahu anhu, and he tells him that they're saying that it's okay, we will fight from within the city, the Prophet ﷺ says his famous words, it is not appropriate for a prophet to put on his armor and prepare for war and then take it off until Allah Azza wa Jal judges between him and his enemy. So now he's saying it's too late, right? It's it's already been decided. Okay, so the decision has been taken, and now we're going to move towards this. Now we can't backtrack. And so the Prophet ﷺ basically is saying that we've made a decision. We're not going to be indecisive. And if a prophet makes shura and then he makes a decision, then he should go ahead with it. And this is a very important point again to think about and to reflect on, that in the position of leadership, it is very important that while we take opinions, or we discuss, or we we consult those who are working with us, at the same time we have to be decisive, right? We have to be certain. We have to we have to be the one to hear everything, and that is in front of us now, and then take a decision based on that information and stick with it and move forward on it. It is not very becoming of a leader, or it is not a very great, you could say, leadership quality to waver, or to make a decision and then to change it, or to be indecisive. This is not good, and it would not instill confidence in those who are you could say under your command, because these are, especially some of these decisions are life and death decisions, right? They are extremely critical decisions. And so, when people's lives are on the line, you can't waver. You can't be indecisive. You can't say, well, I think this would have been good, but actually let's do, this is going to make people really upset and nervous and anxious that, we're giving our life and this man doesn't even know whether to go left or right. So particularly in this situation, it is so important to take the information you need, make a decision, and then act on it. The only time that you would say that it is, it would make sense to change the decision is if the facts that were given to you on which you based your decision now change. Okay, so now it would make sense that now the information has changed, so the decision would change, right? Or if the facts that were given to you were inaccurate or false, and then in that case, again, you can change, whatever you've decided, because what you based your decision on doesn't stand anymore. So those are different exceptions, but otherwise, you decide and you move forward on it. All right. There was again something else that came to my mind, but I can't remember now what it was. Okay. Yes, I remember now. And once you have made a decision which you have thought about, so you can see that the Prophet ﷺ, from the time that he gets this information up until this point, he is not hasty in any way, right? He doesn't rush into anything. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, that haste is from shaitan. So he takes his time and he does this, step by step. He thinks things through and then he does them. So once you have thought and you have understood and decided, and then if things go wrong, as in if the outcome is not what you were expecting, or it's not what seems like a good outcome, you should not go back and blame the people who made that call, because people gave you suggestions and you took one of those suggestions on and you said, this is what we're going to do. And so now you don't go back and say, oh, we shouldn't have listened to them. They were just young and inexperienced and we should have thought this through a little bit more. So whatever happens at the end of Uhud, you never see the younger Sahaba being blamed or anything like that happening. So whatever was done, it was decided and it was acted upon. And whatever was the outcome, it was accepted. And you just learn from those incidents, take lessons from it, but you don't do this blame and going back and saying, oh, I shouldn't have done this or you shouldn't have said that. None of that. Okay. And it's all part of being decisive. So if you're indecisive, you will say, oh, I actually wanted to do this, but I listened to you. So if you are decisive and you have decided on something, then there's no room for blaming this one and that one, right? Okay. So the next thing that they decided to do was that they march out of Medina and they go towards Uhud. And that is the place that they decide that they want to, meet in combat with the enemy. Now, again, the choice of Uhud is, again, very strategic, and it has a lot of military competence in deciding that particular area. And you can see some of it is self-explanatory, right? That you have the mountain range of Uhud, that is a protection on one side. And then you have the city of Medina, which is, again, you could say like a boundary or protection. And then there was one small area, which was, you could say, it could expose them to something. And that is where that little hill was. And that is where the Prophet ﷺ, he placed 50 men on that hill. And he gives some very he gives like very clear instructions to these 50 men who are placed on this hill. And he says to them, before we get to the hill, there's a couple of other important things that I want to tell you. So when the Prophet ﷺ is heading towards Uhud, he wants to take a slightly different route to how they would normally go towards Uhud. And he says, can any one of you guide us through a way that will bring us out to the enemy without them realizing it? And so Abu Khaitan, he volunteers, and he takes them through some agricultural land rather than their traditional route that would lead them out of Medina to go towards Uhud. And as they pass through a farm that was owned by a munafiq, whose name was Mirba bin Qaybi. So they walk through his farm. And of course, when you're going to walk over vegetation or agricultural land, it's natural that, something is going to get damaged or crushed or whatever, right? And so as the Prophet ﷺ is walking through this land along with his, army, Mirba, he tries to stop the Muslims, and he was blind. And he says, if you are the messenger of Allah, then I do not permit you to enter my garden. So he's blind, he can't see, but he's just threatening him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he ignores him, and the army continues to walk forward. And then Mirba, he picks up some dirt in his hand, and he says, by Allah, if I knew I'd strike no one but you, Muhammad, I'd hit you in the face with this. And of course, this is an extremely disrespectful way for anyone to address the Prophet ﷺ in, and the Sahaba, they get very upset and angry. And anyway, disrespect towards the Prophet ﷺ is a punishable crime. And the Prophet ﷺ, he's very patient, and he tells his Sahaba, he says, leave him, don't kill him. This sightless fellow is blind both in his heart and in his eyes. And so they leave him alone. One of the things you see in this example, where this garden or this field that they're walking through, it's owned by Mirba. And he's telling them that I don't give you permission to trespass. I don't give you permission to walk through my fields. And the Prophet ﷺ still continues to do that. Can anyone tell me why why do you think the Prophet ﷺ didn't think that, that this is not his property, or that, he should stop and he should, listen to what Mirba is saying? So if you think about it, what they are doing is they've damaged a few, you could say, crops or vegetation or something, right? But this is damage or harm that has been caused to one person. Whereas if the Prophet ﷺ does not march through this to get to where he wants to, because he's trying to avoid the disbelievers from seeing where they are and where they're walking up to, that is going to jeopardize a whole community, right? It's going to jeopardize many people's lives. And so you can see that you have to weigh the benefit and the harm, and you have to, the benefit of a whole community or a whole people, it supersedes the benefit of one individual. And so that's why the Prophet ﷺ is in his right to carry on walking, because he's doing this for a greater purpose, to protect the Muslim community. Okay. I will just end with this last few points. As they are walking towards Uhud, because now they are ready to go and fight, right? So they're going towards Uhud, and where they're going to now, that's going to be their base until the kuffar come. And as they're approaching Uhud, the munafiqeen, they start slipping away. And they are such cowards that they don't even find it important to tell the Prophet ﷺ or inform him or make an excuse that, we don't want to be here anymore, or, we're leaving, or we're going away. They just start disappearing and slipping away. And so one of the soldiers, he rides up to the munafiqeen, and he goes and he approaches Abdullah ibn Ubay, and he tells him to fear Allah, and he says, that are you going to leave the Messenger ﷺ when we have promised to take care of him, we promised to defend him? And so Abdullah ibn Ubay's response is just, Muhammad listened to the kids and he ignored my opinion. And so basically he's saying that because he ignored me and my opinion, why should I put my life on the line for him? Because he didn't take my opinion. And so that's a very lame excuse. And his other excuse is even more lame, where he says, honestly, if I knew that this fight is actually going to happen, and if I knew and believed that the Quraysh are actually going to come and fight you, we would have gone ahead with you. But I know that no fight is going to happen. And so that's even, a worse excuse that he comes up with. Because if you think about it, it's the other way around. He knows that the kuffar are going to come. And that's why he is slipping away, because he doesn't want to end up being dead, right? But he is giving them the opposite excuse. He's just saying that, I would have really come if I knew that there was going to be a fight. But because there isn't going to be a fight, I'm just going to go back. And you can see that, it's hard to differentiate between a believer and a munafiq under normal circumstances, right? So you can have an imam who is a munafiq, you wouldn't know. You can have a da'i who is a munafiq, you wouldn't know. You can have a friend, you can have a teacher, you can have people in many roles who are munafiq, but you can't tell their nifaq, right? The battlefield is a critical place which separates between believers and disbelievers. And this was one of the main purposes of Uhud. And this is what I want to end with, that although the Muslims took a big hit and, different things happened, but it saved the believers from engaging with the munafiqeen in future battles, in future conflicts, right? And it saved them from other bigger losses. So they had to face this at this time, because remember, there was only about 1,000 Muslims who are going to fight a 3,000 man army, and out of these people about 300 of them have slipped away. That's the munafiqeen. And now you've only got 700 believers. And at that time, if you were to calculate, there's 700 of these people who are fighting, and a few in the city, right? Women and children. So the total number of Muslims on the face of the earth at that time is about 1,000, maybe, if that, maybe 900. And so you can see that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses a very small group of people to have a very, very huge impact on humanity, right? And it's this small band of people, again, who takes, the message of Islam ahead. And it's these people who carry on carrying the message of Islam, and opening, border after border and spreading Islam. But yes, this verse in Surah Al-Imran, where Allah says, ما كان الله ليذر المؤمنين على ما أنتم عليه حتى يميز الخبيث من الطيب. Allah would not leave the believers in that state you are in presently until He separates the evil from the good. And so you can see that this verse is revealed at the time of Uhud, and it shows that this was one of the key things in Uhud. This is when the munafiqeen become apparent. So like we said, that you had believers and disbelievers. And then at Badr time, you started to have this new group or new band of people called munafiqeen. And they become very clear and obvious at the time of Uhud. This is where there's very clearly three types of people. There's believers, there's disbelievers, and then there's hypocrites. So with that, inshallah, we will stop here, inshallah, and continue next time. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdika atubu ilayk. If there's any questions, I'll take them. I don't know if this was too much information for all of you, but I hope it's easy to understand, and it is really a story, and it is sort of like storytelling, but I would like you to maybe make notes or write some basic facts down so that you can remember, and try and participate more. Today the participation was really poor. I hope I'm not putting everyone to sleep, but I need you guys to think and remember things with me. So inshallah, next time we will just continue with Uhud, and I will just quiz you on a few things, so try and remember some of the facts you heard today, inshallah. So Jazakallahu Khairan, all of you, for joining the dars, and I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places barakah in your time and in your efforts and your families, and adds the time that you have given this to your mizan of hasanat. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alright, so inshallah, if there's no questions, I will end the dars, and inshallah I will see you next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.